Among the companies alleged to have exposed Missouri workers to asbestos fibers are 2 power generation plants, 2 chemical manufacturers, and a motor vehicle assembly plant. In addition, at least 1 university has had asbestos problems connected to renovation. In modern times, whenever there has been heat or fire danger, there was usually asbestos to be found. This substance was so useful when it came to preventing damage and injury from corrosive chemicals. The term "this substance" is somewhat misleading. Asbestos is actually a generic term for several different minerals that are chemically unrelated, but have similar physical properties. Namely, they are soft, flexible, and fibrous, yet retain the fire resistance of rock. These mineral fibers can be woven into fabric, much like wool or cotton. Unfortunately, these fibers can have devastating effects on the human respiratory system, causing fibrosis, or an increase of fibrous tissue in the lungs, pleural plaques and thickening, and a variety of cancers, including lung cancer and mesothelioma, a rare cancer of the pleural lining. While all asbestos is resistant to fire, electrical current, and corrosive chemicals, some varieties do some jobs better than others. For example, crystal tile, used in about 95% of all asbestos products, was long considered an ideal all-around flame retardant. This is largely what is found in old buildings as flooring, ceiling texture, insulation, and pipe wrapping. Crucidolite, on the other hand, was more useful for chemical protection. Also known as blue asbestos, it is part of the amphibola classification of asbestiform minerals. Amosite, which was primarily mined in South Africa, was another form of asbestos that was highly resistant to corrosive chemicals and heat. That also had a great deal of tensile strength. For that reason, amosite was frequently used on asbestos cement sheets and pipes, water casings, and electrical insulation. Industrial uses. The Mack truck assembly plant in Joplin is similar to auto manufacturing plants when it comes to asbestos issues. Gasket materials and brake linings are 2 of the components of any vehicle in which asbestos is used. Power plant workers have some of the highest asbestos exposure rates according to a report carried out in Puerto Rico in 2003 and presented at occupational safety conferences in 2007. Some 13% of all chest x-rays taken of such employees displayed some kind of abnormality. Another source of asbestos exposure was the W.R. Grayson Company's Zonolite plant in St. Louis, which processed nearly 105,000 tons of asbestos-contaminated vermiculite ore shipped from the mines in Libby, Montana. During the processing of the ore to produce attic insulation and other vermiculite products, asbestos was released into the air and exposed not only people who worked at the plant, but those who worked, went to school, or lived near it. Construction and renovation. Recently, the owner of a major hotel chain was fined for violations related to the renovation of one of its sites in Kansas City. The owner of the building had failed to hire licensed asbestos abatement contractors and acknowledged using untrained employees to do the work. As a result, the owner of his chain was assessed fines totaling $300,000. Natural asbestos deposits. Missouri's Ozark Mountains have 2 naturally occurring deposits of amphibola asbestos, one of which is located in an area southwest of Poplar Bluff. The other one is found near the small town of Advance. There is also a serpentine or chrysotile deposit in the area, in which an asbestos mining operation once existed. Legal resources in Missouri. A search through the Missouri Federal District Court cases for asbestos-related personal injury product liability lawsuits turns up only one recent lawsuit, Schaff versus 3M Company, filed in December of 2006. Although only one case was listed, asbestos and mesothelioma cases are a concern in the state. Missouri is ranked 17th in the U.S. for mesothelioma cases, with a mesothelioma mortality rate of 11.35 per million. Missouri has a crude mortality rank of 31 in the country. In 2007, a new Missouri case saw a defendant denying it used asbestos. The judge in the case reprimanded Rancho Cordovas Aerojet for falsely denying it had ever used asbestos in the rockets and missiles it has produced since the early 1950s. Judge Robert Durker of the Missouri Circuit Court in St. Louis barred the company from presenting its key defense in a lawsuit over the death of a 42-year-old woman who died of an asbestos-related cancer. The jury awarded $5.1 million to the woman's family. In court papers, Aerojet claimed to have not used asbestos in manufacture, a claim that deeply offended the family of the victim. Attorneys for Aerojet denied that they had deceived the court. An attorney with Aerojet's parent corporation, GenCorp, claimed the company had difficulty locating documentation and former workers to verify the use of asbestos, despite Aerojet having 32 tons of the carcinogenic material stockpiled at the plant in a 1988 inventory filed with Sacramento County. The case is being credited with shedding light on the plight of aerospace workers, many of whom were exposed to asbestos on the job. The case also highlights a third generation of mesothelioma sufferers. The first generation was the miners who extracted toxic fibers. The second was the people who worked with asbestos products. The third generation is made up of young people who were exposed to asbestos indirectly, often when parents who worked with asbestos arrived home with asbestos fibers on their clothing. In another key case, Bennett versus Owings Corning Fiberglass Corp., the Missouri Supreme Court upheld significant compensatory damages for the widow of a worker who died after contracting an asbestos-related disease. The court, however, ordered a new trial to determine punitive damages. Another Missouri asbestos case of note saw hotel operator Dan Hulsing charged with violating the Clean Air Act while working as a superintendent of a Clarion hotel. The charges stem from allegations to which Hulsing pled guilty that Hulsing Hotel Missouri Incorporated illegally removed asbestos without supervision from the hotel during renovation work. The company was fined $200,000 in federal court after it was discovered that hotel guests may have been exposed to asbestos. Under the Clean Air Act, property owners must correctly remove asbestos, abiding by all regulations for such removal before construction work begins. Missouri has seen other complaints and cases involving illegally removed asbestos that expose the public to risk. Trial lawyers for Public Justice, a national public interest law firm, together with Families for Asbestos Compliance, Testing and Safety, or FACTS, a local environmental group, filed a lawsuit in May 2005 against the City of St. Louis and Lambert St. Louis International Airport. The lawsuit alleged that the city and its airport authority violated 2 federal environmental statutes and endangered the public health by demolishing more than 300 asbestos-laden buildings using the illegal and experimental wet method of asbestos removal. The suit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri in St. Louis on behalf of FACTS, a grassroots group comprised mainly of Bridgeton, Missouri residents who live near the demolished buildings and who are concerned about the public health hazards of the asbestos fibers released by the demolitions. Those interested in filing lawsuits should know that the statute of limitations for personal injury law in Missouri is 5 years with the discovery rule that states that this amount of time begins when the problem, in this case the mesothelioma, either was discovered or should have been discovered. There is no specific statute about asbestos. It should be noted that wrongful death cases are limited to a 3-year statute of limitations with an accrual rule. Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information. Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.Net, to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.Net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.Net. information, and help for patients and families.